cared about this country deeply.
Financial Issues with Dan Celia.
American Family Radio Network. Great to be here. 866-300-9298. We have one line open, 866-300-9298. It's Rapid Fire Friday. We're trying to move rapidly. We don't always do a good job, usually my fault. But the listeners and the callers are doing a great job. And we're going to get right back to the phones. All the major indices still in negative territory. Nothing moved. So if you think any of that information I gave out, well, they did come off their lows. So maybe it's going to have some positive impact. We'll see. I think more the uncertainty or the what appears to be a little bit more certainty that nothing's going to happen serious, probably helping the markets. And, of course, feeling like the Fed is going to wait maybe till October or November before they start any tapering. So we'll see. Let me go to Sharon. Sharon calling us from Texas. Hey, Sharon.
Morning, Dan. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
A couple weeks ago, you were giving a scenario of what the future could look like, and I'm not sure if I got this right, so I wanted to clarify. You were talking about, possible inflation, possible recession, but you were somehow tying in there that incomes will go down. And I was trying to get my head around it of why would incomes go down if we're in inflation? Were you talking about incomes would go down if we're in a recession?
No. So what I was getting at were two things that involve income. One is during inflationary times, your purchasing power of your income, your discretionary income is what I was talking about, I think. Your discretionary income, the income that you have left over at the end of the month to, buy ice cream or to buy something maybe you don't need but want, is going to be diminished during inflationary times because your other portion of your income that is committed to paying your needs, gasoline, food, utility bills, those kinds of things, are going to require more because of inflation. So your discretionary income is going to be diminished. So that was one scenario that I gave, okay, because you're just Americans during recessionary times just frankly don't spend as much money. They can't afford to. So discretionary spending, consumer sentiment goes down, spending goes down, and that dramatically impacts in a negative way the economy. So that's what inflation does. So that's one scenario. The other scenario, I don't remember the whole commentary or conversation I was having there on that, but is the idea that a devaluation of a dollar. And I may have said, I know I've said it in the past. I don't know if it was this particular time, but as I talk about my reset button article, or I talk about what could be inevitable, and one of the things that when the Fed figures out that quantitative easing is not working, they are likely to do the only thing they have left, and that is to allow inflation to come in. And I was going to a place where I was saying that when inflation comes in and you let that horse out of the barn, you're finished. You're not going to control it. And if they're naive enough to think they're going to control it, they're dreaming. And along those lines, I played a clip that we had from Paul Volcker, who was the Fed chairman back during the Jimmy Carter years. And his comments a couple months ago at the New York City Economics Club, where he was saying that very thing. If anybody thinks they're going to control that, take it from me, because he knows better than anybody, because he tried that very thing. And, we know what happened. I mean, we had, 13% inflation. So I was referring to what Paul Volcker said. He said this. Go ahead, Devin.
Credibility is an enormous asset. Once earned, it must not be frittered away by yielding to the notion that a little inflation right now is a good thing. A good thing to release animal spirits and to pep up investment. The implicit assumption behind that siren call must be that the inflation rate can be manipulated to reach economic objectives. Up today, maybe a little more tomorrow, and then pulled back on command. Good luck in that. All experience demonstrates that inflation, when fairly and deliberately started, is hard to control and reverse. And in the process, credibility is lost.
Well, coming from a man who knows all too well, that's why you heard some of the chuckles in the audience there. I mean, it's not going to be controlled. So when that happens, the only opportunity or option the Fed may have left let me emphasize this, under the current leadership will be to intentionally devalue the dollar. In other words, Treasury Secretary Lou comes on the TV one night and he says, as of midnight tonight, your $500 in your savings account is now $250. And we are going through a systematic deflation on all currency to get our debt in check. And some people think that's a good thing because I might as well run up debt. But what I've reminded callers and reminded people of, no, remember, your income's going to go down. The Fed's not going to wipe half of your debt away without wiping half of your income away. It doesn't work that way. Everything that is calculated on a dollar basis is going to have to change. Now, either that is the end result, that's the reset that I talk about. Either that is the end result, or instead of that, they form a union with the International Monetary Fund and other nations around the world, and they decide on a consolidation or a one currency in order to solve the problem. Either way, we're in trouble. So that was what I was talking about, Sharon. That is one long explanation to a very simple question you asked, but I wanted to try to put some context to what I was saying that a few weeks ago. Does that clarify, Sharon?
Yes, it clarifies it very well. Thank you, Dan. And I think you said something, too, about there was only one other better country to be in or something. I missed what you said on that, too.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Sharon, to be honest with you. I think I might have talked about other foreign currencies to own and referred to the fact that I own personally, as a hedge against this collapse, some Swiss currency, some Swiss franc. The reason I own that is because it's probably one of the strongest government currencies in the world. Certainly in the top three. Back when I bought it, which was a number of years ago, it was number one. Don't know if it's still number one or two, but it's right up there in the top three for certain. And I think I alluded to the idea that is probably the one currency that is going to help. And the reason I say it's going to help is because it's probably going to increase your purchasing power a little bit during those times, because you'll be able to, the banks would have to accept it, and give you a whole lot more dollars for a Swiss dollar than you might get for an American dollar, or, value. But also, I believe that we're going to see merchants around the country be like Europe is today. You go to Europe today, you can use anything. Not, even the Middle East. You go to the Middle East or Europe, for that, everywhere. I mean, I've been in Asia, the Middle East, and Europe in the last 5 years. And no matter where you go, you can go to buy a Coca-Cola somewhere, and you can give them an American dollar, and they have a little list on the side of their cash register, and they'll give you your change accordingly. I mean, so everybody takes pretty much every currency out there. I think we're coming to that in America. That'll happen, particularly in those times. So I'm assuming, I don't know this for sure, Sharon, but I'm assuming that's what I was referring to, that I would prefer to have a government a currency that cannot be made illegal, like gold could be, to use as an alternative currency than perhaps gold. But the window to be able to use that is going to be short, maybe be a month or two, because eventually a devaluation like that in the American currency, if that were going to happen, is going to have a contagion effect around the world. So the window of opportunity to use it is probably going to be short-lived, and I throw that out there too. Great stuff, Sharon. Great questions. I sure appreciate it. Sorry I had to be so long about that. But, folks, the reason I am is because I always want to try to put things into the right context, and that's why I do that. Let me go to David. David Carnes from Ohio. By the way, folks, 866-300-9298. Hey, David.
Hi, Dan. I want to thank you for your ministry. I appreciate hearing you on the radio, the town hall meetings, and on the Internet. I would like to hear you speak about the pump and dump stocks, which I've bought too many of those through the years. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, helping people investing in solid companies that don't go against the Bible.
Thank you, David. So, there are pump and dump stocks referring to this idea that you would buy a particular stock, the idea that they're very highly publicized. There are companies that are buying back their own stocks, pumping and driving the prices up, which is frankly the whole stock market right now, because the increases that we've seen, in my opinion, in the stock markets are due to that scenario being done by the Federal Reserve and allowing companies to do that. And then you dump it at a higher price. So I would say this to David and to everybody out there. There is it's not there wouldn't be unbiblical as long as you're buying a biblically responsible stock that is going on. Tyson Food, biblically responsible, still giving Bibles to their employees. A great company. They've done that. Smithfield Foods, same thing. You look at some companies that have pumped up, driven up the value of their stock. There would be nothing wrong with owning that stock, riding it up through this period of time and dumping it for profit. Here's the problem that so many people make, David. So many people see that happening, do that, participate in the pumping up portion, and they can't let go. They can't let go. They can't take their profit. They don't want to do that, even though it was their intention in the beginning. They can't do that. So that is the problem. It takes a great deal of discipline to do that on a consistent basis. But most importantly, as you alluded to, David, most importantly, we do that with biblically responsible companies. Look, folks, I started this ministry a long time ago because I have one concern. I'm sick and tired of Christians and people of faith not putting their money where their morals are and where God's word is. Tired of it. I'm tired of standing firmly, as I hope we all are, against abortion, against the redefinition of marriage, against pornography, standing firmly for those things, knowing that those things are offensive to God. And if you're like me and you believe that what we have been given, whether it's a lot or a little, is a provision from God, God doesn't provide. God doesn't promise prosperity. He promises to take care of our needs, to supply for our needs. And if you're like me and you believe that is the case with all that we got, that means that money is of God. And we shouldn't be putting God's money in the very things that he weeps over. We shouldn't be doing that. So those strategies are fine. It's just you got to be careful about what those strategies are. If somebody's got a Bible code that is from God on how to invest, and then they are investing in pornography, abortion, and other things, do you think you ought to question the code a little bit? Might be a good idea. 866-300-9298. Let's see if we can get Tom in here before the break. Tom from Texas. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Dan. How are you, sir?
Good.
Listen, I'm just calling. I need some positive reinforcement and assurance.
Okay.
I recently purchased a vacant house, rather run down, on a got a quarter-acre lot that's right up against my property where I presently live. My house is paid off, has been for some time. Recently paid my car off, so I'm able to put a substantial amount of money in my savings account every month. The house next to me in question has been vacant for a couple years. The previous occupants were involved in some rather illegal activities, I guess I could say. The house was vacated, became available for sale. I bought the house and the property, probably used nearly half of my savings account to buy it. I ran a track code through it this week and leveled it and had it hauled off to the landfill. I'm not going to develop on it. I'm going to mow the grass. I may put a garden on it, but I bought it basically to keep it from being occupied by undesirable neighbors which were in it previously. I should be able to put the money back into my savings account in about 14 months, the money that I spent on it. I have no desire, I have no plans to move my current house. Right. I guess my question is, would you consider that a wise buy or a wise investment?
Tom, I would consider it a very wise decision on your part. I think you did the right thing. I think it's going to pay off for you at some point in time. But based on what you've told me that you're able to continue to do, it was definitely the right decision, and you should take some peace in that. We'll be right back.
How important is it to get